Welcome back to Anatomy and Physiology on Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. In this video, I'm going to be doing an overview of the rotator cuff muscles. Now, before I go any further, understand the rotator cuff muscles are distinct and different from muscles of the shoulder girdle. Muscles of the shoulder girdle would include things like levator scapulae, it would include pectoralis minor, trapezius, and serratus anterior. Those are muscles that tend to move the scapula. Rotator cuff muscles actually move the humerus, so they're actually going to be movers of the shoulder joint or glenohumeral joint. All right? Now there are 4 rotator cuff muscles, 3 of which we can see here, but we can learn the rotator cuff muscles through the acronym SITS, S-I-T-S. Here we see the first one, supraspinatus. Some people pronounce it supraspinatus. I in SITS is for infraspinatus. The T is for Teres Minor. Notice that it's not Teres Major. Major is not a part of the rotator cuff. Okay? It attaches to the scapula, as we'll see here in a few minutes, but the Teres Minor is a part of the rotator cuff. And then the fourth one, the other S, is subscapularis. All right? Before we go into these 4 muscles in any real detail, let's first discuss what we're looking at here. So this bone right here, this is going to be the scapula. Okay, we can see a few things here. This is the acromion process or acromion. This would be the spine of the scapula right here. Okay, this over here would be the medial border of the scapula. Okay, this down here is the inferior angle of the scapula, and then over here would be the lateral border of the scapula. Okay. The scapula, recall, right in this area over here, we can't see it, has a glenoid fossa, or glenoid cavity. And then the head of the humerus, which is this bone right here, articulates with that glenoid fossa, or glenoid cavity, and that forms the glenohumeral joint, also called the shoulder joint. A few other things. On the humerus, on this view right here, this is actually a posterior view, we'd actually see this bulge on the humerus called the greater tubercle. The greater tubercle is considered more posterior. If we go over to this view, we can still see a few of those same things. This over here would be the acromion or acromial process. This over here in the more anterior is the coracoid process. We still have the medial border of the scapula. Down here would be inferior angle. This is the lateral border of the scapula. And then right here we see the humerus again. And right here where this tendon is attaching on the anterior view, this would actually be the lesser tubercle. Okay? So the humerus near its head is going to have a greater tubercle and a lesser tubercle. Lesser tubercle is really more anterior, more or less, and the greater tubercle is going to be more posterior. I mention those because those are going to be the insertions of the rotator cuff muscles. Okay? Now, the first one of these we're going to look at is the supraspinatus. I have this in red here because I wanted to remember to mention that when you're looking at rotator cuff injuries, the supraspinatus is by far the most frequently injured of all the rotator cuff muscles. If you go and shadow in a physical therapy clinic, particularly outpatient, and the person has a rotator cuff injury, there's a really good chance, if you had to take a guess, which one of the 4, it's going to be a supraspinatus injury. Okay? If you were to look at the scapula without any muscles or tissue on it, you'd see this basin up here on the top. This is called the supraspinous fossa. Recall a fossa is sort of a depression in a bone or a basin. And so these basins are going to be sites where these muscles, the bellies of the muscles that is, are going to sit. So the supraspinatus sits in the supraspinous fossa. And the fibers are going to project laterally and insert on the greater tubercle. So right here, you can see a little bit of it sort of behind the acromial process. This is the tendon of the supraspinatus. Now notice there's 3 muscles here inserting on the greater tubercle, right? This is the most superior insertion, so this is the superior facet of the greater tubercle, right here. Belongs to the supraspinatus muscle. The blood supply to the supraspinatus is the suprascapular artery, and the innervation is the suprascapular nerve, okay? We're going to see that the infraspinatus actually has the same innervation. The supraspinatus is going to do 2 things. One of these functions is common to all the rotator cuff muscles, and that's stabilizing the humerus or stabilizing the shoulder joint. I wrote humerus here, but really it's stabilizing the shoulder joint. Okay. If you have a damaged rotator cuff muscle, you automatically increase the instability of the shoulder. Okay. But the function that's unique to the supraspinatus is that it initiates shoulder abduction. Okay, meaning the upward phase of a jumping jack. It facilitates that movement. Now, as you know, the deltoid muscle is much more important for shoulder abduction. However, it's known that the supraspinatus initiates the movement. It does not bear most of the force or most of the weight. In fact, the supraspinatus is a fairly weak muscle, has a very poor mechanical advantage. So the deltoid bears the most of the weight, but the supraspinatus initiates that movement. You might also notice that's not a rotational movement, and this is the rotator cuff. So that's interesting. The supraspinatus actually does not have a rotational action. It's really just a movement in the coronal or frontal plane. Okay, so that's your supraspinatus. The second muscle is shown down here, really bounded by this blue line, and that's the infraspinatus. Now, both of these muscles right here, the larger infraspinatus and the teres minor, they both sit in this large basin on the posterior aspect of the scapula, because remember, this is a posterior view, and this basin is called the infraspinous fossa. That's going to be the origin of the infraspinatus. So all of this is infraspinous fossa. This infraspinous fossa is the part that exists beneath the spine of the scapula. And so again, between this blue line right here, this is going to be infraspinatus. Notice that its fibers extend laterally and superiorly, and they're going to insert also on the greater tubercle. But because this is the middle insertion of these three muscles, this is going to be the middle facet of the greater tubercle. Now the infraspinatus is going to have its blood supply also come from the suprascapular artery, but also a second artery here, circumflex scapular artery, is also going to supply the infraspinatus, mainly because it's a larger rotator cuff muscle. It requires two of these. And its innervation is going to be the same as that of the supraspinatus. It's the suprascapular nerve. Okay? Now the actions of the infraspinatus are again going to be to stabilize the shoulder joint, because all of these muscles do that, but it's also going to facilitate external or lateral rotation of the shoulder joint. Okay? What you're going to find is when you look at external rotation versus internal rotation is a much stronger movement. And you can go to the gym and demonstrate this for yourself with a cable pull. Okay? You're going to have a lot more force generation with internal rotation than external rotation. And I would even argue that when you're doing this exercise at the gym with the cables, which is normally how it's done, you need to be very careful with this. It's really susceptible to injury, particularly if you don't work this a lot. Internal rotation is also stronger, as I'll mention later on, because the pectoralis major also facilitates that movement. Okay? So that's your infraspinatus. Below that is the teres minor. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. Teres minor is the rotator cuff muscle. Teres major is not part of the rotator cuff muscles. Okay? The teres minor is going to originate on the lateral border of the scapula. So the fibers are going to run vertically and laterally, as did those of the infraspinatus. And it's also going to insert on the greater tubercle. But it's going to be the most inferior attachment here, so it's going to be the inferior facet of the greater tubercle. Now the blood supply to the teres minor is going to be posterior circumflex humeral artery and the circumflex scapular artery, which also supplied parts of the infraspinatus as we saw above. And the innervation for teres minor is going to be the axillary nerve, which arises from the roots of C5 and C6 spinal nerves. The teres minor is going to be synergistic with the infraspinatus. So really, when we think about the posterior rotator cuff muscles, these two are going to facilitate shoulder external rotation. In addition, they also stabilize the shoulder joint. I mentioned the external rotation being on the posterior aspect because that could be a good way for you to organize the rotator cuff muscles. Superior muscle up here facilitates or initiates shoulder abduction. These two, infraspinatus and teres minor, are posterior. They're on the infraspinous fossa. They facilitate external or lateral rotation. If we move to the anterior rotator cuff muscle, this is going to be internal or medial rotation. So good organizer there. We're looking at an anterior view right now. Again, here's our acromial process, here's our coracoid process. Up here we can see a little bit of the supraspinatus, but really almost the entire anterior part of the scapula is made up of the subscapular fossa. Again, another basin in which this muscle's belly sits. So the origin of the subscapularis is the subscapular fossa. You can see the fibers run vertically and laterally again, and they're going to insert this time on the lesser tubercle. So that's an important point. All three of these muscles, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor, they all insert on the greater tubercle. In contrast, the subscapularis is the only one that inserts on the lesser tubercle. So here's the lesser tubercle. You can see the tendon here of subscapularis. The blood supply to this is going to be the subscapular artery. I think that makes sense. And then the innervation to subscapularis is going to be the upper subscapular nerve and lower subscapular nerve. And I think you can probably guess where the upper and lower subscapular nerves innervate. Upper is the upper half, lower is the lower half. And both of these nerves are going to originate from roots C5 and C6 spinal nerves. Okay? Now for the actions of the subscapularis, again, it's going to stabilize the shoulder joint. That's a given when we're talking about these. But the other thing is that it facilitates shoulder internal rotation. Now again, I mentioned this, when you go to the gym and you're doing cable machines with the external versus internal rotation, you'll notice that you'll have more strength with internal rotation. The major reason for that is there's a lot of other muscles that facilitate internal rotation, large muscles, including the pectoralis major. So you should have a lot more strength in internal rotation than you would for external rotation. Okay? I also want to talk a little bit about Teres Major here. I'm going to have another video where I go into it in a lot more detail, but I want to mention why this is not a rotator cuff muscle. Okay? In order to be defined as a rotator cuff muscle, you have to have your origin on the scapula, but the insertion has to be on the greater or lesser tubercle up here at near the head of the humerus. The teres minor does originate on the scapula. It originates down here on the posterior aspect near the inferior angle. But when the fibers move, they don't really move superiorly up to the head. Instead, they move laterally and really just insert on the medial lip of the intertubercular groove. Okay? And in doing that, the teres major is going to allow movements in the shoulder joint. Okay? But because it doesn't insert up here, it can't be defined as a rotator cuff muscle. In fact, the teres minor is going to facilitate mainly shoulder extension. It's actually going to be the synergist of the latissimus dorsi muscle. Okay? Latissimus dorsi muscle will also insert in the same location on the intertubercular groove. So hopefully this video gave you a good understanding of the four major rotator cuff muscles. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. Thank you.